Hello for everyone. We have today lecture about ethnosociology and sociology of religions, two directions into one lecture. So, next slide, just a moment. Oh yeah, sorry. Until the first free multicultural elections held in 1994, South Africa was governed by apartheid, a system of forced racial segregation. Under apartheid, every South African was classified into one of our categories: white, descendants of European immigrants; colored, people whose descent is traced from members of more than one race; Asian; and black. The white South African minority, around 13% of the population, ruled over the non-white majority. Non-whites had no vote and no representation in the central government. Segregation was enforced at all levels of society, from public places like washrooms and railway carriages to residential neighborhoods and schools. Millions of blacks were headed into so-called homelands, well away from the main cities, and worked as migrant laborers in gold and diamonds mines. So, key concepts. Race, rasa, is one of the most complex concepts in sociology, not least because of the contradiction between its widespread everyday usage and its supposedly scientific basis. Many people today believe mistakenly that humans can be readily separated into biologically different races. This isn't surprising considering the numerous attempts by scholars and governments, such as that of South Africa, before the ending of apartheid, to establish racial categorizations of the people of the world. Some authors have distinguished 4 or 5 major races. White authors have recognized as many as 3 dozen. In many ancient civilizations, distinctions were often drawn between social groups on visible skin color differences, usually between lighter and darker skin tones. However, before the modern period, it was more common for perceived dictations between human groupings to be based on tribal or kinship affiliations. These groups were numerous, and the base of their classification was relatively unconnected to modern ideas of race, with its biological or genetic connotations. Instead, classification rested on cultural similarity and group membership. Scientific theories of race arose in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. They were used to justify the emerging social order, as England and other European nations became imperial power ruling over subject territories and populations. Count Joseph Arthur de Gobineau, sometimes called the father of modern racism, proposed the existence of just 3 races: white, Caucasians; black, Negroid; and yellow, Mongoloid. According to Gobineau, the white race possessed superior intelligence, moral and willpower, and its inherited qualities that underlie the spread of Western influence across the world. The blacks, by contrast, are the least capable, marked by animal nature, lack of morality, emotional instability. The ideas of the Gobineau and other proponents of scientific racism later influenced Adolf Hitler, who transformed them into ideology of the German Nazi Party and otherwise supremacist racist group such as the Ku Klux Klan in the United States. In the years following the Second World War, race science was thoroughly discredited. In biological terms, there are no clear-cut races, only a range of physical variations in human beings. Differences in physical type between groups of human beings arise from population inbreeding, which varies according to the degree of contact between different social or cultural groups. Many social scientists concur, arguing that race is nothing more than an ideological construct, whose use in academic circles believes that it has a grounding in reality. Other social scientists disagree, claiming that as a concept, race is still its meaning for many people, even if its scientific basis has been discredited. Nevertheless, racial ideas in science have a habit of recurring. Debates on the scientific basis of race continue in the field of genetic research. What then is race if it doesn't refer to biological categories? But the question of why some differences and not other become matter of discrimination and prejudice has nothing to do with biology. Differences in skin color, for example, are treated as socially significant, whereas differences in color of hair are not. Racial discriminations are more than ways of describing human differences. They are also important factors in the reproduction of patterns of power and inequality within society. Race is used to classify individuals or groups of people is called racialization. Historically, racialization means that certain groups of people came to be labeled as distinct biological groups on the basis of naturally occurring physical features. During the period from the 15th century onwards, as Europeans came increasingly into contact with people from different regions of the world, attempts were made to categorize and explain both natural and social phenomena. Non-European populations were racialized in opposition to the European white race. Racialization has also occurred within Europe. For example, in relation to the discrimination against and exclusion of Roma populations within European nationalist states. Within a racialized system, aspects of individuals' daily lives, employment, personal relations, housing, healthcare, education, and legal representation are shaped and constrained by their own position within that system. So next slide, ethnicity. While the idea of race mistakenly implies something fixed and biological, the concept of ethnicity is one that is purely social in meaning. Ethnicity refers to the cultural practices and outlooks of a given community of people which set them apart from others. Members of ethnic groups see themselves as culturally distinct from other groups and are seen by them in return as different. Different characteristics may serve to distinguish ethnic groups, but the most usual ones are language, history, or ancestry or imaginated, religion, and styles of dress or adornment. Ethnic differences are wholly learned, a point that seems self-evident until we remember how often some groups are regarded as born to rule, or natural lazy, unintelligent, and so on. Yeah, in fact, there is nothing innate about ethnicity. It is purely a social phenomenon that is produced and reproduced over time. Through socialization, young people assimilate the lifestyles, norms, and beliefs of ethnic communities. However, what marks out ethnic groups is often the use of exclusionary devices, such as the prohibiting of intermarriage, which serve to sharpen and maintain culturally established boundaries. Sociologists, yeah, sociologists favor the term ethnicity over the race because it's a social concept with no biological meanings to cause confusion. Using ethnic labels in this manner risks producing divisions between an us and a them, where certain parts of the population are seen as ethnic, while others are not. In fact, ethnicity is an attribute possessed by all members of the population, not just certain segments of it. Yet, as we shall see in practice, ethnicity is most often said with minority groups within a population. What is a minority? The notion of minority groups, often ethnic minorities, is widely used in sociology and is more than a merely numerical distinction. In sociology, members of minority group are disadvantaged when compared with the dominant group, a group possessing more wealth, power, and prestige, and have some sense of group solidarity, belonging together. So, main term, group solidarity. Thus, yeah, sociologists frequently use the term minority in non-literal way to refer to a group's subordinate position within society, rather than its numerical representation. Yeah, there are many cases in which a minority is in fact in the majority. In some geographical areas, such as inner cities, ethnic minority groups make up the majority of the population, but nonetheless refers to as minorities. This is because the term minority captured the disadvantageous position. Members of minority groups often tend to see themselves as a people apart from the majority. They are sometimes physically and socially isolated from the larger community. They tend to be concentrated in certain neighborhoods, cities, or regions of a country. People within the minority sometimes actively promote endogamy, marriage within the group, in order to keep alive their cultural distinctiveness. For example, in Kazakhstan, we said about Khoja Rua. Some scholars have favored speaking of minorities to refer collectively to groups that have experienced prejudice at the hands of the majority society. The term minorities draws attention to the perverseness of discrimination by highlighting the commonalities between experiences of various subordinate groups within society. As an example, disableist attitudes, anti-Semitism, homophobia, and racism share many features on common and reveal how oppression against different groups can take similar forms. So, next, what is the racism? Please see the picture. It's an anti-Semitic attack on Jewish in Germany. Yeah, I think you can see the picture. This picture. So, one widespread form of prejudice is racism, prejudice based on socially significant physical distinctions. Racist is someone who believes that some individuals are superior or inferior to others on the basis of racialized differences. Racism is commonly thought of as behavior or attitudes held by certain individuals or groups. An individual may profess racist beliefs or may join in with a group such as white supremacist organization, which promotes a racist agenda. Yet many have argued that racism is more than simply the ideas held by a small number of jaded individuals. The concept of institutional racism was developed in the USA, America, in the late 1960s by civil rights campaigners who saw the racism underpinned American society rather than merely representing the opinions of a small minority of people. The concept suggests that racism pervades all of society's structures in a systematic manner. According to this view, institutions such as the police, the health service, and education system all promote policies that favor certain groups while discriminating against others. Yeah, it's a real time. Institutional racism is a collective failure of an organization to provide an appropriate and professional service to people because of their color, culture, or ethnic origin, which can be seen or detected in processes, attitudes, and behavior which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness, and racist stereotyping, which disadvantages minority ethnic people. Ethnic integration, diversity, and conflict. There are main important subtopic 2. So let's start. Many states in the world today are characterized by multi-ethnic populations. Yeah, Kazakhstan too. Yeah, often they have evolved in this way over the course of centuries. Some Middle Eastern and Central European states, for example, like Turkey or Hungary, are ethnically diverse as a result of long histories of changing borders, occupations by foreign powers, and regional migration. Other societies have become multi-ethnic more rapidly as a result of deliberate policies encouraging migration, or by way of colonial and imperial legacies. In an age of globalization and rapid social change, the rich benefits and complex challenges of ethnic diversity are confronting a growing number of states. Meanwhile, ethnic tensions and conflicts continue to play in societies around the world, threatening to lead to the disintegration of some multi-ethnic states and hinting at protracted violence in others. How can ethnic diversity be accommodated and the outbreak of ethnic conflict averted? Within multi-ethnic societies, what should be the relation between ethnic minority groups and the majority population? There are 3 primary models of ethnic integration that have been adopted by multi-ethnic societies in relation to these challenges. Assimilation, first of all. Second, the melting pot, and finally, cultural pluralism and multiculturalism. It is important to realize that these 3 models are ideal types and aren't in practice easy to achieve. Yeah, of course. Models of ethnic integration. The first model is assimilation. meaning that immigrants abandon their origin customs and practices, molding their behavior to the values and norms of the majority. An assimilationist approach demands that immigrants change their language, dress, lifestyle, and cultural tools as a part of integrating into a new social order. In the United States, which was formed as a nation of immigrants, generations of immigrants were subjected to pressure, become assimilated in this way, and many of the children become more or less completely American citizens. Yeah. Американские примеры, конечно, являются самым успешным, да, у них, кого не спросишь, они отвечают, что они американцы. A second model is that of the melting pot, rather than the traditions of the immigrants being dissolved in favor of those dominant among the pre-existing population. They become blended from new evolving cultural patterns with its attractions for a diverse range of ethnic groups. The USA is often said that best exhibits the pattern associated with the idea of melting pot. Not on different cultural values and norms brought into a society from the outside, but diversity is also created as ethnic groups adapt to the wider social environments in which they find themselves. Many have believed that the melting pot model is the most desirable outcome of ethnic diversity. Traditions and customs of immigrant populations aren't abandoned, but contribute to and shape a constantly transforming social milieu. Hybrid forms of cuisine, fashion, music, and architecture are manifestations of the melting pot approach. The third, last model is that the cultural pluralism, in which ethnic cultures are given full validity to exist separately, yet participate in the large society's economic and political life. A recent and important outgrowth of pluralism is multiculturalism, which refers to policies that encourage cultural ethnic groups to live in harmony with each other. Kazakhstan's we like a multiculturalism model. The United States and other Western countries are pluralistic in many senses, but ethnic differences have for the most part been associated with inequalities rather than equal, but independent membership in the national community. It does seem at least possible to create a society in which ethnic groups are distinct but equal, as is demonstrated by Switzerland, where French, German, and Italian groups coexist in the same society, though multiculturalism has its critics. So next interesting and important and relevant topic is sociology of religion. Religion has had strong hold over the lives of human beings for thousands of years. In one form or another, religion is found in all known human societies. The earliest societies, in record of which we have evidence only through archaeological remains, show clear traces of religion, symbols, and ceremonies. Cave drawings suggest that the religious beliefs and practice exist more than 1,000 years ago. Throughout subsequent history, religion has continued to be a central part of human experience, influencing how we perceive and react to the environment in which we live. Why has religion been such a pervasive aspect of human societies? How is its role changing in late modern societies? Under what conditions does religion unite communities, and under what conditions does it divide them? How can religion have such a purchase on individuals' lives that they are prepared to sacrifice themselves for its ideals? In order to do so, we shall have to ask what religion really is and look at some of the different forms that religious beliefs and practices take. We shall also consider the main theories of religion and analyze the various types of religious organization that can be distinguished. A key question is whether the developed world really is a secular place, or put another way, can religion survive modernity? The study of religion is a challenging enterprise which places quite special demands on the sociological imagination. In analyzing religious practices, we have to make sense of the many different beliefs and rituals found in the various human cultures. We must be sensitive to ideals that inspire profound conviction on believers, yet at the same time take a balanced view of them. Sociologists define religion as a cultural system of commonly shared beliefs and rituals that provides a sense of ultimate meanings and purpose by creating an idea of reality that is sacred, all encompassing and supernatural by Durkheim, Berger, and Wilknow. There are three key elements in this definition. First, religion is a form of culture. Yeah, culture consists of shared beliefs, values, norms, and ideas. Yeah, that create a common identity among people, a group of people. Religion shares all these characteristics. Second, religion involves beliefs that take the form of ritualist practices. All religions have a behavioral aspects, social activities in which believers take part in that identify them as members of the religious community. Third, perhaps most important, religion provides a sense of purpose, a feeling that life is ultimately meaningful. It does so by explaining coherently and compellingly what transcends or overshadows everyday life in ways so that other aspects of culture, such as an educational system or belief in democracy, typically cannot. So, how sociologists think about religion? When sociologists study religion, they do so as sociologists and not as believers or disbelievers in any particular faith. This stance has several implications for sociological study of religion. First, sociologists are not concerned with whether religion's beliefs are true or false. From a sociological perspective, religions are regarded not as being discovered by God, but as being social constructed by human beings. As a result, sociologists put aside their personal beliefs when they study religion. They are concerned with the human rather than the divine aspects of religion. Sociologists ask, how is a religion organized? What are its principal beliefs and values? How is it related to the larger society? What explains its success or failure in recruiting and retaining believers? Second, sociologists are especially concerned with the social organizations of religion. Yeah, religions are among the most important institutions in society after family. Yeah, they are primary source of the most deep-seated forms, norms, and values. Sociology of religion is concerned with new different religious institutions and organizations functions. The earliest European religions were often indistinguishable from the large society, as religious beliefs and practice were incorporated into daily life. This is still true in many parts of the world today. In modern industrial society, however, religions have become established in separate, often bureaucratic organizations, and sociology focuses on the organizations through which religions must operate in order to survive. Next, third, sociologists often view religion as a major social solidarity. Religious beliefs, rituals, bonds help to create a moral community in which all members know how to behave towards one another. If a single religion dominates in a society, it may be an important source of social stability. If a society's members adhere to numerous competing religions, however, religious difference may lead to destabilizing social conflicts. Recent examples of religious conflicts in a society include struggles between Sikhs, Hindus, and Muslims in India. You can see in the picture examples of India situations, sect situations, clashes between Muslims and Christians in Bosnia and other parts of the former Yugoslavia, and hate crimes against Jews, Muslims, and other religious minorities in the United States. Last one, sociologists tend to explain the appeal of religion in terms of social forces rather than in terms of purely personal, spiritual, or psychological factors. Sociology doesn't question to the depth of such feelings and experiences, but they are unlikely to limit themselves to a purely spiritual explanation of religious commitment. A person might claim that he or she became religious when God suddenly appeared in a vision, but sociologists are likely to look for more earthly explanations. Some research argues that people often get religion when their fundamental sense of social order is threatened by economic hardship, loneliness, loss or grief, physical suffering, or poor health. In explaining the appeal of religious movements, sociologists are more likely to focus on the problems of social order than on the psychological response of the individual. Next, about religion in classical sociological theory. Max Weber is the main person. Max Weber embarked on enormous projects to study the major religion of the world. I want to say today shortly. No scholar before science has undertaken a task of such scope. Most of his attention was concentrated on what highlights the world religions, мировые религии, that have attracted large numbers of believers and severely affected the course of global history. He made detailed studies of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and ancient Judaism, and in the Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, Протестантская этика и дух капитализма in Russian, and elsewhere. He wrote extensively about the impact of Christianity on the history of the West. He didn't, however, complete his project study of Islam, which was taken up by later Weber scholars. Weber argues that religion isn't necessarily a conservative force. On the contrary, religiously inspired movements have been produced dramatic social transformations. Thus, Protestantism, particularly Puritanism, was the source of capitalistic outlook found in the modern West. The early entrepreneurs were mostly Calvinists. Their drive to succeed, which helped initiate Western economic development, was originally promoted by a desire to serve God. Material success was for them a sign of divine favor. Analyzing Eastern religions, Weber concludes that they provided insuperable barriers to the development of industrial capitalism, such as took place in the West Seas, isn't because the non-Western civilizations are backward. They have simply accepted values different from those which came to predominate in Europe. In traditional China and India, Weber pointed out there was a certain period a significant development of commerce, manufacture, and urbanism, but this didn't generate the radical patterns of social change involved in the rise of industrial capitalism in the West region was major influence in inhabiting such change. For example, Hinduism is what Weber called an other-world religion. That is to say, its highest value stress escape from the toils of the material world to higher plane of spiritual existence. The religious feelings and motivations produced by Hinduism don't focus on controlling or shaping the material world. On the contrary, Hinduism sees material reality as a veil hiding the true concern to which humankind should be oriented. Although China was for a long while the most powerful and culturally most developed civilization in the world, its eminent religious values acted as a break on a strong commitment to economic development for its own sake. Weber regarded Christianity as a salvation religion involving the belief that human beings can be saved if they adopt the beliefs of the religion and follow its moral tenets. The notions of sin and of being rescued from sinfulness by God's grace are important here. Next slide. Two forms of religion found frequently in smaller cultures are totemism and animism. The word totem originated among North American Indian tribes, but has been widely used to refer to species of animals or plants believed to have supernatural powers. Usually, each kinship, group, or clan within a society has its own particular totem, with which various ritual activities are associated. Totemic beliefs might seem alien to those living in industrialized societies, yet in certain relatively minor contexts, symbols similar to those of totemism are familiar. As when a sports team has an animal or plant for its emblem, mascots are totems. Animism is a belief in spirits or ghosts thought that populate the same earth as human beings. Such spirits may be seen as either benign or malevolent and may influence human behavior in numerous aspects. In some cultures, for example, spirits are believed to cause illness or madness and may also possess or take over individuals in such a way as to control their behavior. Animistic beliefs aren't confined to small cultures, but are found to some degree in many religious settings. Religions which incline towards monotheism, belief in one God, however, are found relatively infrequently among smaller traditional cultures. Most are polytheistic. There is a belief in many gods. The three most influential monotheistic religions in the world history are Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. All originate in the Middle East and each has influenced the others. The oldest of the great religious phenomenon in the world today is Hinduism. as the core beliefs of which date back some 700,000 years. Hinduism is a polytheistic religion. So, organizations about religious organizations. All religions involve communities of believers. But there are many different ways in which such communities are organized. One mode of classifying religious organization was first put forward by Max Weber and his colleague and religious historian Ernst Troeltsch. Weber and Troeltsch distinguished between churches and sects. A church is a large, well-established religious body, like the Catholic Church or the Church of England. A sect is a smaller, less highly organized group of committed believers, usually setting itself up to protect against what a church has become, as Calvinists or Methodists did. Churches normally have a formal bureaucratic structure with a hierarchy of religious officials and tend to represent the conservative faith of religion, since they are integrated into the existing institutional order. Most of their adherents are like the parents in being church members. So, sects are completely small. They usually aim at discovering and following the true way, and tend to withdraw from the surrounding society into communities of their own. The members of sects regard established churches as a corrupt. Most have few or no officials, all members being regarded as equal participants. A small proportion of people are born into sects, but most actively join them in order to further their beliefs. Howard Becker, who added two types, the denomination and the cult. Denomination, cult. Denomination is sect which has cooled down and become an institutionalized body rather than an active protest group. Sects which survive over any periods of time inevitably become denominations. Thus, Calvinism and Methodism were sects during the early formation, when they generated great fervor among their members, but over the years they have become more respectable. Denominations are recognized as more or less legitimate by churches and exist alongside them, quite often cooperating harmoniously with them. Cults resemble sects but have different emphasis. They are the most loosely knit and transcend of all religious organizations, being composed of individuals who reject what they see as the values of the outside society. Their focus is on individual experience, bringing like-minded individuals together. People don't formally join a cult, but rather follow particular theories or prescribed ways of behavior. Members are usually allowed to maintain other religious connections. Like sects, cults quite often form around the inspirational leader. Instances of cults in the West today would include groups of believers in spiritualism, astrology, or transcendental meditation. So we finished glossary terms for your glossary. Apartheid, racial segregation, race, racism, population, inbreeding, racialization, etc. You can find into your glossary or syllabus. Practice session topics. social ethnic communities, ethnic systems, ethnos, people, nation, what differences, ethnic groups and their coexistence, ethnic interests and inter-ethnic communication, theories of nationalism, in interethnic and interreligious harmony, analysis of Max Weber's work, Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism. So thank you for your attention.